Chapter 13, The Naked House. Anytime that I have an opportunity to talk about recipes for disaster, especially if I've been through it myself, I'm more than willing to do so. Reason being is that what I've seen in my life is that instead of personal stories being turned into cautionary tales for the sake of helping others, namely the youth, they get swept under the rug, never talked about because of the embarrassment and or unwanted memories evoked. That don't apply to me because the purpose of me writing this book is to keep someone else from making some of the same wrong decisions as I once did. What you're about to read is a story that I'm more than certain isn't only an experience unique to me because there isn't anything new under the sun, and what's new become old and what's old become new again with another generation. The recipe for disaster on these pages is that of drugs, sex, a house, and teenagers with no supervision of any kind. When all that I listed is added together, the sum you get is nothing good. Angie, Pooh, Trina, Keisha, Reginetta, Daviana, Cortez, Stank, Mimi, Buck, Goldie, Lario, Lil Joe, and myself. It was other young men and women who this is about. At a time when all of our hormones were racing like crazies, Angie's house on Ferry Street between My Elliott and Moran became the meeting spot for all of us. It wasn't a time that any of the named guys weren't allowed in this house, and more than often than not, when we went over there, the young women were there as well. That meant school hours or the wee hours, whether it was all of us skipping school to be there or going after school was out. It was like an unwritten rule to be there. Once at the house, endless weed will be smoked while alcohol was consumed. Keep in mind, everyone was underage for anything legal, and Angie was the oldest, and I think she was only 21, if that. The rap music, along with the buzzing girls, led to them dancing, and the no supervision had the boys prompting them to take their clothes off. What ensued was a room full of naked teenagers who ended up either in a room having unprotected sex or doing so in plain view of others while not caring who saw the sexcapades with no shame on anyone's end. After a short time of this going on, the place was dubbed the Naked House because clothes seemed to be optional. This is no lie, because damn near every and all day someone was bound to be naked under a blanket or a sheet, taking a bath, putting on lotion till people having sex any time of the day or night. I can't forget those who slept at different hours throughout the day with nothing on. Thinking back on it, that period of my life was crazy, but I don't regret one thing about it. Although I advise youngsters not to partake in that kind of behavior for the following reasons. At this house was the first time that I saw how young women were affected when they found themselves pregnant without having a clue as to who impregnated them. It really messed them up mentally because these girls were band together to do whatever was needed to ensure that neither of them had babies without knowing who the father was. Some of their methods were unthinkable, such as self-aborting by repeatedly kicking and punching one another in the stomach, excessively drinking beer and liquor, inserting coat hangers into themselves and each other, drinking dishwashing liquid and washing powder, and probably other ways that they never discussed with us. It was all dangerous. I was young at the time and thought they were gone in the head, but now I know that I was the one gone in the head for continuing to be around them and playing a part in their situations. This house is where I first experienced STDs. The diseases were passed around like rites of passages, and no one talked about it. But we all knew what time it was, and once again, 9 times out of 10, the sources wasn't known. The reason being is that so much unprotected sex was going on with different people, it was impossible to locate the origin. While in middle school, I went to my counselor to get information to kill the crabs I caught at the Nectar House without knowing who gave it to me. I was embarrassed like a motherfucker, but I had to get them things off me without discussing my problems with my peers. Just as with others, when I was crab free, I was back to doing the same shit. The drug usage was out of control, and I personally think it was the most dangerous and self-destruction thing that we all were involved with. Passing out from drinking on a regular is what I saw others do, and I had my fair share of it happening to me too. In no type of way, shape, fashion, or form could those spells have been healthy to our bodies. More than likely, Some of us probably have side effects from what we started many, many years ago. The cigarettes and weed smoke was the cause for many asthma attacks and trips to the hospital for those who had the respiratory condition. Back then, to my knowledge, nobody was into hard drugs, but that was then, and some doctors will argue with the plausible basis to say that marijuana is a gateway drug, meaning that it would lead to an individual using heroin, cocaine, crack pills, and etc. Believe it or not, I'm somewhat in agreement with that because I hear so many people say, I smoke so much weed and I don't even get high no more. I can relate having seen the amount of joints and blunts a person smoking a day and not get the desired results. I believe that knowing your past, you can somewhat understand your present, which is your past future. That theory of mine could apply to others as well if you knew them for years or saw them for years. It's like this. If your neighbor played football all while he was growing up up until high school, you wouldn't be surprised if he was to join the NFL after graduating college where he was a starter for the team for 2 years. If my theory holds any type of truth, I have to say that the Naked House played a vital role into where me and my peers currently find ourselves in our mid to late 30s and early 40s. As I know it today, here's how some of their lives turned out, including my own. I did a lot of years in prison. Some of the women can't have children. Others have children but don't know who the fathers are. And the guys have children with multiple baby mothers, myself included, with some of them having children by friends and different women who are in the same family. Just as some of the women grew up to be sluts, whores, drug addicts, and alcoholics, the same is equally applied to the men as well. Some are overweight, unhealthy, and have diseases that could have easily been prevented, such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, diabetes, and etc. That was the physical problems. But there are psychological problems also because some are now loony as hell, and any doctor would diagnose them as such at the first exam. On the social aspect, most likely the Naked House is the corporate or played a part in some of us not being able to sustain a normal relationship while some of the women ended up in relationships with other women. Seeing the girls have sex with each other is something that I enjoyed back then, especially if I was in on it. Now I know it's an unnatural act and I wouldn't recommend it for women. Although that's the case and I don't condone it, I don't knock any female for choosing to live an alternative lifestyle. Some of the men who are irregular at the Naked House aren't exempt from an unexpected way of living because one of the guys have been living on the down low for years with only a few people knowing. What I wanted to show by sharing this story is that the choices we make early in life have an uncanny way of shaping our future. When you're older and into certain things, it can directly correlate with things from your past, whether they were good or bad. Same thing with the bad habits and some illnesses that you find yourself with presently. If you are a parent who is reading this, I strongly advise that you closely watch the bent of your child's inclination and let no evil habit gain with his or her years. MSTFA taught. This essay is going to ruffle a lot of feathers after it's published, but the contents of are from my life and they need to be shared to possibly prevent a youngster from going down the same road of destruction that I did after being enticed by drugs, sex in a house with no supervision. Recipes for disasters come in many forms, but they all have similar results with long-term effects after short-lived carnal pleasures are achieved.